Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Milo. Today we are going to be ranking all of the arcade endings for Mortal Kombat 1. So alright, let's get started.
I wasn't looking for allies against the Yakuza, but I found one in Special Agent Jackson Briggs. He'd heard gangsters plotting to kill me on a wiretap and came calling, hoping I'd be his informant. We planned to part ways when we got the job done. But then, Tsung showed up to steal Sento. Needless to say, Jackson had questions. It blew his mind to hear that the stories in Johnny's movies were real. Once the shock wore off, Jackson quickly sized up the threats Earthrealm faced. To deal with them, he got his bosses at the FBI to form the Outworld Investigation Agency. When he asked me to sign on, I hesitated. After all, me? A government agent? But it's an important job. And more importantly to me, an honest living.
Okay, that one is pretty good. We can go ahead and drop it into B. I think my biggest problem with it is, why is it the Yakuza? Like, in a fantasy world where you have established organizations like the Red Dragon and the Black Dragon to draw from, why would you use the Yakuza for the story instead? Surely you could make it so that the Red Dragon is a similar organization to the Yakuza, but just a fantasy version, and Kenshi used to be a part of them and is teaming with Jax to take them down. But alright, on to the next one.
General Shao's revolt left Outworld's armies in tatters. We were vulnerable to enemies both foreign and domestic. That's why my sister asked me to take command, to stitch her military back together and purge Shao's loyalists within it. She trusted only me with the task. The soldiers, however, had little faith. They thought me a spoiled dilettante, unprepared and unfit to serve. That I could fight mattered little. All that mattered was that I wasn't one of them. I finally earned their loyalty by orchestrating an epic victory over Shao and his rebels. Though the general himself escaped, his forces were smashed. For as long as I am able, I will lead the Empress's armies in defense of Outworld. Through strength, we will achieve peace.
Okay, I liked that one as well. It can go up into B. So we got a little bit of extra information from that. So after the events of this game, the rebellion is still going on. From the way things ended, I thought, oh, okay, I guess maybe Shao Kahn just goes back into the fold, accepts that him and Shang Tsung were manipulated, and then just goes back to being the general under the royal family, but apparently not.
It was inevitable that the Shaolin Masters had me join them. They knew just how much future initiates could learn from me. Shujinko was one of my earliest. His ability to absorb anyone's powers and skills was amazing. With the right training, he could become our greatest champion. I knew that I alone could give it to him. But as his proficiency grew, so did his ego. In love with himself and his power, Shujinko became a threat to the realms. He hadn't learned humility, because I wasn't the one who could teach it. I should have listened to Raiden's warning and not tried to train Shujinko alone. After he was subdued, Shujinko's accumulated abilities and memories were taken from him. He is once again a new initiate, ready to begin his training. This time, Raiden and I train Shujinko together. He will become the champion he is destined to be. And I will fulfill my duties, humbly and cooperatively.
Well, it's nice that they included Shujinko. I was a little worried watching that. I was like, is he about to die? Are they gonna write him out of this timeline already? But no, they haven't quite done that yet. Sure, that doesn't mean he's going to be playable in the sequel to this game, but at least it's more than no hope for him to return. I'll put that one up in B as well.
As her reign began, Empress Mileena faced many challenges. To meet them, she turned to the people she trusted. Her sister to lead her army, and me to lead her Imperial police. Though I missed Empress Sindel dearly, I was glad my ties with her family had been mended. But while it was an honor to be made responsible for Outworld's internal security, I soon realized accepting the appointment was a mistake. I'm not cut out to be a bureaucrat, nor am I patient enough to navigate the Imperial Court's politics. I was at my best patrolling Sundo's streets, when I could feel the city's pulse and serve and protect its citizens directly. That's why I resigned my post and resumed my role as Sundo's first constable. I end each day knowing I've made a difference.
Okay, this one I'm gonna move down to C. Just because nothing really happened in it. I do like that in all of these, we're actually getting real story of what is happening after the tournament. That is great. It's been a really long time since we've gotten endings that actually told us information about the world and what was happening in it, and not just what-if scenarios. So I do really like that already. But hers was just kind of a circle. She got a promotion, didn't like it, quit. That's it. She's back to doing what she was doing in the story mode.
My loyal partner had warned me. Reclaiming my power as Keeper of Time might have unforeseen consequences. In this, as in most things, he proved prescient. The process I had undergone did irreparable harm to my body. Taking back my power had cost me my immortality. While my lifespan would still stretch across eons, I would one day perish. And if the war with Titan Shang Tsung taught me anything, it is that this timeline is not safe without a protector. Yet I had never given thought to choosing a successor. Who is it that could replace me and protect my new era? The answer, of course, is Geras. Tireless and meticulous, he is perfectly suited to be entrusted with this grave duty. And no one knows better the temptations of the hourglass. I have no doubt he will be above them.
Okay, so Liu Kang lost his immortality, but not really. Really, it sounds like just an excuse to hand over the role from Liu Kang to Geras, which I don't mind. I think he is well suited for the role. But that one's going down in C for me as well.
Though worried about how the public might react, I met with Baraka to discuss his Tarkatans. Speaking from his heart, he moved me. I agreed to visit his colony and see how his people lived. The conditions were atrocious. This was one of my mother's few mistakes. Like all Outworlders, she treated Tarkatans with scorn. What they deserved from us was compassion. And the only way to get it for them was to reveal my affliction. To show all my subjects that even an empress could get Tarkat. The scandal my revelation caused was intense. But with the help of Kitana and Tanya, I emerged from it a stronger empress than ever. My honesty, empathy, and resolve won over my remaining doubters. There is no longer any question that I am fit to lead the Empire.
Okay, I like that ending. It can go on up to B. And you know what? I'm moving Kitana's up to A. The only problem that I think I have with Mileena's ending is that one of the big plot points within the story mode was how she needed that injection so that she wouldn't turn feral like they are, and that Shang Tsung had to do some pretty nefarious things to those that had it to make the serum for her. And I can see they have conveniently not addressed that, how she is still normal after this point. Is he still getting the serum for her? I think what is more likely to happen is that in the sequel to this game, they just will never mention it again, and she won't need the serum anymore.
Quan Chi's plot collapsed. Along with it, my plan to secure new beings to feed my starving people. Because I'd advocated for partnering with him, I was held responsible. If I didn't seize for Viternus' new feeding grounds, the Coven would banish me. But then, I had a revelation. I didn't need to conquer realms to feed my people. I simply needed to capture enough beings to breed them. Once they multiply, Viternus will have a limitless, renewable source of food. And I only need a few thousand to start. A number so small compared to the billions in the realms that no one will notice as people go missing. But it will be more than enough to establish our breeding stock and feed a ravenous Viternus.
I'm gonna move that one up to B, because I like that we got to see the, like, gothic architecture of Viternus. I mean, sure, it's a little generic when it comes to vampire architecture, right? Like, of course, they're in big gothic castles, but I appreciate them showing other realms that we haven't seen already. As for her plan, it's completely insane and wouldn't work.
Were it not for my godly counterpart, I would not have survived the battle against Titan Shang Tsung. Meeting him, though, raised questions. Why did I replace him in this new era? Why was I made mortal? Lord Liu Kang told me of his Raiden's nobility and righteousness, about his steadfast leadership in the defense of Earthrealm. He also told me about Raiden's dark side, how he could be consumed by rage and cast aside the rules he otherwise lived by. Making me mortal and incapable of such anger was to keep me from following in his footsteps. Though I understood the reasons why, I felt I had been done a disservice. To survive the coming battles, I may need the edge that only great rage can bring. As the Shaolin couldn't aid me, I sought out someone who could. Someone to stoke the fire within me and teach me to master it. For this, I could have no better teacher than the Shirai Ryu's Grand Master.
Raiden training with the Shirai Ryu, that seems cool enough. But I feel like that fits more if it was actually Hanzo. Kuai Liang's not an angry guy. He's the least angry. Unless Raiden is literally only equating his inner fire to literal fire. And just going, that's good enough, it doesn't matter if Kuai Liang has no inner fire. Right? Bihan's the edgy one. Kuai Liang sure isn't.
To elude capture by Empress Mileena, I joined Havik's crusade in Saido. There I summoned more magic than I thought possible, and drowned out the old regime. Havik's longed-for anarchy had been achieved. He was more than satisfied. But I was left empty and broken. Had I been satisfied as Outworld's High Mage, not let myself be tempted by Shang Tsung, a great city would not now lay in ruins. I've caused devastation, ended thousands of lives, all because of my blind ambition. I've betrayed my oath, my sovereign, and my realm. These high crimes merit punishment, and I'll accept whatever the Empress gives me. My only ambition now is to one day be forgiven.
Rain can go into B, though I think that was pretty insane. Like, his overwhelming sense of regret didn't hit until after he wiped out an entire massive city of people. That's the kind of thing where it's like, no, you're not going to be put through some kind of rehabilitation program until we can trust you again. No, just execute the guy. That's way too far. Also, I'll move Kenshi up to A as well.
With General Shao freed from prison, we began raising a new army against the royal family. Though many were eager recruits, few were good at soldiering. It was so bad, the general was forced to change tactics. He decided that we needed a doomsday weapon. That weapon isn't a thing, though. It is a monster. Onaga, the Dragon King. The general told me the old legends were true. That his ancient ancestor defeated Onaga, trapping him deep inside Mount Sagan. The Dragon King is still there today. His pent-up fury waiting to be unleashed. Because Onaga is so dangerous, the general wouldn't risk trying to tame him before. But now, he feels we have no choice. Though I likely won't survive, I accept this mission gladly. I can think of no greater honor than to give my life in the general's service.
Reiko's has Onaga. It gets a free pass up to A. Though I will say that that ending has convinced me that they're definitely not going to be using Onaga anytime soon, if ever. Where they have shrunken down characters like Goro, they have enlarged Onaga to be 2 or 3 times bigger than he was before. And that kind of character they will never use anymore because he's too big to fight against. They're gonna have to downsize him down to a more reasonable state before they're going to consider using him again. So on one hand, it's nice that they included him. On the other hand, it's sad to know they're definitely not considering using him anytime soon.
After fleeing Outworld, I hadn't expected to return. But then I also hadn't expected the new Empress to make me an offer I couldn't refuse. To thank me for helping stop General Shao's rebellion, she asked me to be her emissary to the Zaterrans. Going home, bearing the seal of the royal house, I would show, once and for all, that my mutation wasn't to be feared. That it wasn't a source of shame. To my surprise, I was welcomed. But those warm smiles hid a dark secret. I stumbled upon a trove of official records, which showed that my shape-shifting ability isn't unique. Many Zaterrans are born with it, but are killed by their government to keep it from spreading. Who started this barbaric policy? Who is now enforcing it is unknown. But I will find out. And I will put an end to this madness.
That one was okay. Not a lot happened. It does have me wondering what even Chameleon is in this story. Like, she was used a little bit as a cameo fighter. But Reptile clearly says he's the only one of his people that can transform into human form. So she's not Zaterran then? So what is she? They're never gonna tell us, is the answer. She has 0 dialogue, and if she did have any, it sure would not be telling us what she is.
No sooner had Titan Tsung been defeated than Bihan and his loyalists hunted us down. Outnumbered, we fled to Japan. There, we sought refuge from an old family friend. As children, we played together. But Harumi Shirai was a woman now, the head of her clan. Her strength, beauty, and intellect awed me. Also incensed by Bihan's betrayal, Harumi agreed to help me forge a new clan, one that would stand against him and defend Earthrealm. Her aid proved invaluable, and as time went on, we grew closer. To honor Harumi and pay respects to my new bride, I named the clan after her, calling it the Shirai Ryu. Now the battle against my brother begins in earnest. The Shirai Ryu won't rest until Bihan is defeated and the Lin Kuei's honor restored.
Honestly, that one's messed up. That one's going down to D. How dare they have the audacity? Like, Kuai Liang has always been the inferior Sub-Zero. In some depictions, they have gotten Kuai Liang pretty good. Like, MK11 was pretty solid. But Bi-Han has always been the superior Sub-Zero. So for them to decide that Kuai Liang will no longer be the inferior Sub-Zero, and instead will be the inferior Scorpion, that's pretty messed up. Not only that, but you give him Scorpion's wife as well? For shame.
After escaping Lei Chin prison, I was hounded by the Imperial Police. I needed a place to hide and to recuperate while I plotted the best way forward. I knew the remote canton of my youth would be perfect. To escape capture, I traveled by sea. Little did I know that a gargantuan storm was brewing. My tiny craft was smashed apart. I closed my eyes, waiting to drown, hoping that the Netherrealm wouldn't claim my soul. But when I reopened them, I found myself not in hell, but on a deserted island. From its ruins, I could tell that great sorcerers had once lived there. In the caves beneath the ruins, I found what I can only describe as a well of souls. Once I learn how to wield its power, I will become invincible.
Well, it seems that Shang Tsung has learned nothing. That one can go into C. Shang Tsung finds Well of Souls, gains its power. That's a pretty generic trope for him by this point. Considering how the story mode went, I thought this timeline Shang Tsung might have developed more into like an anti-hero after the story was concluded, but apparently not. If that's the case, why doesn't Liu Kang just go obliterate him one of these days? And General Shao for that matter, why didn't he just go help Kitana and blow him up with his magic?
The battle had been lost, but the war isn't over. I won't stop fighting until I take Outworld's throne. That they thought Lei Chin prison would hold me is laughable. Once free, I began planning my next campaign. I would need an unstoppable army to overthrow Mileena. Unfortunately, most of my former soldiers lacked the courage to rally to my standard. Rebuilding my army would require finding new recruits. And that task is proving easier than expected. Outworld's golden age has left more than a few behind. Without hope, without power, they eagerly heed my call to tear down Mileena's government.
Shao gets to go up to B. That was a nice ending. I can't help but notice how nerfed he is though now. Like, they have stripped him of all of his sorcery. This Shao is nowhere near the force that Shao Kahn was. So him building up this rebel force to go against Mileena is actually like not that scary at all in comparison to if it was like a real Shao Kahn they had to go up against.
As the darkness enveloped me, I took a long last look at my family. I did not expect to see them again until their souls joined mine in the living forest. But miraculously, my beloved husband delivered me from oblivion. Though he couldn't save my body, Jared had preserved my soul. Like him and countless others, I am now a part of Ermac. Yet ours is not a peaceful repose. The collected souls within Ermac have their own needs and agendas. Before we can speak as one, we must first reach consensus. I had thought, as the former rulers of Outworld, I and Jared would hold sway. But here we are, two souls among many thousands, fighting for the right to be heard. And if there is one thing we do well together, it is fight. We will win the right to govern Ermac as we once had governed Outworld. And we will rule for the benefit of all.
I can go up to B. That was a fine ending. Though it does make me wonder, Like, if they could make a body for Jared, and it turned out as well as it did for him, why not just make one for her too? Or better yet, just pull out the souls of the other people that they don't want in there. Though, apparently the only two that can help with that are Shang Tsung and Quan Chi, and it seems the heroes have burned bridges with them the second the campaign ended.
Kuai Liang and I were working hard to build our new clan. But even with the help of his close friend Harumi, it was difficult. The biggest problem was finding the right initiates. Then, one night, while walking outside Harumi's compound, I was attacked. I thought at first it was a Lin Kuei assassin, but his strikes were too uncertain, too angry. My attacker, it turns out, was a boy. Homeless and hungry, his assault was born of desperation. He needed money so that he could eat. It was like looking at myself 15 years ago. I would have ended up just like him if the Lin Kuei hadn't taken me in. So I took the boy to Kuai Liang, who also appreciated his fire. We made him our first initiate. The boy's name? Hanzo Hasashi.
No, yeah, once again, how dare they? That's going down to D. Just because how dare they do this to Hanzo? The timeline gets completely reset and he loses his identity and his wife. You know what? There is another thing we should watch. This is not technically an ending, but I'm going to count it as one.
The Scorpion invading our timeline also lost his wife and son to Quan Chi's murderous machinations. Consumed by grief, he searched them all to find another Harumi with whom he could rebuild his family. But in timeline after timeline, he arrived too late. Harumi was already dead. When Scorpion reached ours, he was crushed to find that, though alive, Harumi was wedded to Kuai Liang. Thwarted yet again, Scorpion's frustration exploded into rage. He has vowed to burn this entire timeline. If he cannot have Harumi, no one will.
I wish that if you got that costume for Scorpion, that you would get that ending instead. Even though we don't have like a token down here to represent it, I'm putting that one up an S.
I had broken the Lin Kuei free of Liu Kang's enslavement. We were now masters of our destiny, and could take our place among Earthrealm's great nations. But taking and holding territory would require a vast army. I needed more fighters to make our presence felt. Then I recalled Shang Tsung's dragon warriors. An army of them would be unstoppable. But trafficking in such strong magic would surely draw Liu Kang's attention. Sector advised that we avoid detection by building our army using science, not sorcery. We've invested much into this endeavor, and we are beginning to see results. Once again proving the depths of Sector's genius. When we are done, all of Earthrealm will honor our desires and heed our demands. If not, they will face the Lin Kuei's wrath.
That one can go into C. It was a good ending, but at the same time, it's just retreading old ground again. Like it's just same old, same old. Lin Kuei is going down the path of the Cyber Initiative once again. Just this time, Bi-Han is at the helm instead of Sector.
Until recently, I hadn't met Li Mei, but I had heard the stories. How the Umgadi's matron superior blamed her for not preventing Emperor Jared's murder. How she quit in disgrace rather than accept punishment. But those stories didn't fit the woman I now knew. Li Mei would never have been so negligent. Eventually, I uncovered the truth. The failures and mistakes which led to the Emperor's murder, they resulted from poor decisions made by the matron superior themselves. They made Li Mei their scapegoat. When the Empress found out, she wanted the Umgadi disbanded. But I convinced her that it could be reformed. To make sure it did, she put me in charge. I am humbled by this sacred responsibility. The Umgadi, my sisters, they are my life. I will not let them be brought down by the acts of a selfish few.
Tanya's can go up in B, just because it actually gives us story development. It actually helps complete the picture that was painted in the story mode, even if I'm not exactly satisfied with the answer that it gave us. Like, while I was going through the story mode, I presumed the reveal of who killed King Jared and Li Mei, of course, not actually being responsible, was somehow going to be tied in, but it never was. But I'm glad it was somewhere, at least a fragment of it.
I couldn't believe that Liu Kang welcomed me in Earthrealm, or that he thought me worthy to study with his Shaolin masters. After a lifetime of wishing for one, I finally had a home. But my joy was tempered as I thought about Serena. My shadow sister was still under Quan Chi's yoke, and she deserved a life free of him as much, if not more, than I. Quan Chi and my other sisters proved tenacious, but they were no match for my blade. I snatched Serena from them. Then Liu Kang helped me break Quan Chi's spell. Her mind free of his influence for the first time in years, Serena chose to join me in Earthrealm. My sister and I once again fight side by side, only now we do so for Earthrealm. Together, we have formed the Order of Light.
Okay, so I like that ending because it actually does some interesting things. Actually going to Quan Chi, freeing Serena, bringing her back, all that is neat to see included. That last line of, "and now we have formed the Order of Light," that was terrible. That they should have just cut. And also, this is more of like a minor gripe with this, but it really is a shame that we are getting all of these remakes. MK9 being a remake of 1, 2, and 3. This, even though it's called MK1, it's actually MK12, being a remake of MK5, 6, and 7, and MKX being a remake of MK4. Nowhere in there have we gotten a remake of Mortal Kombat Mythologies. And considering they're already putting Bihan down the path of the Cyber Initiative, it's really unlikely that we're ever gonna get it in this timeline. It's just a shame. That dynamic of Quan Chi being in the Netherrealm and ruling, and having that dynamic with his demon assassins, that only has ever been touched on in Mortal Kombat Mythology Sub-Zero, Mortal Kombat Conquest the TV series, and like a dash of it, a sprinkle of it in Mortal Kombat Armageddon. I'm just saying, when you just skip past that stuff straight to Serena's escaping, and you never show what it's like for Serena to work with Quan Chi and the dynamic of the other assassins as well working under Quan Chi, you're definitely losing something. You're losing a big chunk of the story by just skipping over it.
While the regime had changed, little else had. My people still suffered in silence, ignored by the rest of Outworld. Though now I knew Empress Milena's secret, that she was also afflicted with Tarkat. If anyone would help, it would be her. But how to get an audience? Syzoth. He was the Empress's new emissary to the Zaterrans. I asked him to introduce us. At great personal risk, he agreed. And as I'd prayed, the Empress was willing to meet. Even better, she would visit the colony. She was shocked to see how we lived. She moved quickly to provide for our care and comfort. Thanks to the Empress and Syzoth, we Tarkatans are no longer pariahs. until our disease can be cured. That will do.
That one can go up to B. It was a good ending. It really is just the precursor to Mileena's. One thing that I think is weird about the whole Tarkat situation is that it doesn't seem necessarily as serious as they make it out to be. Like, Baraka refused to shake hands with Johnny Cage, but he did go out of his way to say that the disease is, like, excessively hard to catch. And sure, the results of when you do catch it are horrific, but Mileena is like a literal biohazard living as Empress in her palace. Hasn't infected anyone, will probably never infect anyone. And I mean, we already know that no one else in this timeline is going to be affected by it. She's gonna be the only one infected ever.
Though the barriers between timelines had been rebuilt, there was no question that they could again be broken. Protecting this timeline would require eternal vigilance, so that it could not fall victim to further outside aggression. But nothing in my countless lifetimes had prepared me for this task. In none of them had multiple timelines ever coexisted. Monitoring them for threats was an entirely novel problem. It would require a novel solution. I discovered that though the timelines no longer touched, their meeting had left them intertwined. I can now secretly surveil all timelines, keeping watch for potential danger. It pleases me to do this service for the new era. Lord Liu Kang may rest assured that it is secure.
Yep, Geras will be sure to let us know when he finds the DC universe for Mortal Kombat vs. DC 2 coming 5 years from now. Not much happens in that one. I'm putting it at C. I like Geras a lot, but ending on a note of like, oh, I'm just gonna sit in this chair and watch over all of the timelines and all that, it's a little dry of an ending. It's not like the most exciting thing to happen.
Quan Chi's defeat had cost me everything. For months I had furthered his plot, and now I had to start over. Saido's people were still in chains. That's when Rain approached me. On the run from Empress Mileena, he was desperate for help. And though I'd had my fill of sorcerers, this one was different. I agreed to provide him safe haven. He agreed to help topple Saido's government. And topple it we did. Rain summoned a wave so fast, so powerful, that it crushed the capital. Saido's fascist rulers were swept away. My people are finally free. They can chart their own course, needing only to follow their own desires. Their lives are now blessed by anarchy.
No Havik. They are all dead. Since we gave Rain a B, we can give Havik a B as well, but yeah, Havik saying, oh, they're free to live in chaos now. No Havik, they're just all dead. Once again, just to reiterate, if Rain can do that, you should not let him live. Just kill him to be safe. Like Magneto in Ultimates 3, you don't let a guy that can do that live. Just get rid of him.
Since this whole thing kicked off, I'd wondered why Liu Kang chose me to be a champion. I mean, sure, I was killing it as a martial arts star, but it's one thing when it's all for show. It's different when you're playing for keeps. Then Liu Kang let me in on his master plan. He wanted the masses to know about the world beyond them, the one filled with gods and monsters, and he wanted me to tell him about it. But I knew revealing the truth all at once would be too shocking of a plot twist for most. That's why I pitched doing a bunch of stories, to slowly get people used to it. And if there's one thing I can do, besides kick ass in combat, it's build a cinematic universe.
I'm serving up movies, streaming series, games, you name it. I like that I'm doing a public service. And it doesn't hurt that I'm making more than a few bucks. It's the kind of synergy that would make any studio mogul proud.
Okay, here's the thing. That's not necessarily a bad ending. There is good art throughout it, but they have done that same ending for Johnny Cage I don't know how many times now. And because of that, it's going down to D. Like, you can't just do the same Johnny Cage ending for every game. You know what was a good Johnny Cage ending? MK9. When they first hinted at what he could do in MKX, using his power more efficiently to beat Shinnok. When they first showed that off of like, oh yeah, that power that he uses when he does his shadow kick, when he throws his shadow balls, if he could harness that, if he could be trained to harness that at all times, he would be like God tier. That was a unique and good Johnny Cage ending. This is just the same thing we've been given since the beginning of Mortal Kombat. Okay, but what do I think overall? Overall, I do like the direction that they took with these endings. I appreciate them telling me exactly what is going on in this timeline after the events of this game concluded. Why do I think they have done that? Usually, they leave this kind of thing a lot more ambiguous. Like with the Mortal Kombat 11 endings, they had all these hints to Titans, different Titans other than Kronika, that obviously are not in this game. Instead, they did do a Clash of the Titans in a sense, but it was existing characters from different timelines that were Titans. In these endings, we get no foreshadowing at all that is not already retouching on plot lines we've seen in other timelines. The only thing that is new that we are getting teased about is those other timelines. That's why personally I think, especially with the way they kind of Saturday morning cartoonified Shang Tsung, the evil Shang Tsung from the alternate timeline. Because even though he's died, like he died in the last game too, he could definitely come back again and be the main villain of the next game as well, for all we know. And if they did do a modern Mortal Kombat versus DC for the next installment, which we have not received a Injustice installment in quite some time, I would not be surprised if the next installment was a multiverse situation for not only the DC universe, but for the Mortal Kombat characters as well. So not just standard DC characters, but variants for them as well, with potentially Titan Shang Tsung being the villain on the Mortal Kombat side, and Titan whoever else being the villain on the DC side. The other reason they could be doing this, not really foreshadowing much at what is coming next, is they could be doing another reset. Or, you know what would be a really interesting idea? Bring us back to the timeline of Mortal Kombat 11. Make it so one of the people that won didn't reset time, and we just continue on from there. So there's all kinds of possibilities for the next installment of Mortal Kombat. But alright, if you wanted to see any of these endings higher or lower on this tier list, let me know. I know this kind of thing is incredibly subjective, and everyone would place these differently. So let me know out of these which ones were your favorites. But alright, thanks for watching. Goodbye.